My objective this evening is to confuse you. It's my favorite thing to do. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions for which I have no good answers. My first question is, what is the color of courage? If you visualize courage in your mind, what color does it have? What's the temperature of that color? What quality does it have? My second question is a little more concrete, and this one I will give you an answer to. How do you define leadership? And the last question is the weirdest one. If you could end all human suffering and guarantee that you would build the perfect society, but you had to build that society on the broken back of an innocent child, what would you do? Confused? When I was a child, I wanted to be a lawyer. I watched the courtroom drama probably when I was 11 or 12, and I saw someone stand up in a courtroom and speak truth to power, defend those weaker than himself, create justice using nothing but his clever wits, his eloquence. And I went running to my mama. I was like, "Mama, I figured it out. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up." And this might not be her exact words, but my late mother was a pious woman. I assume she responded with something like, "Astaghfirullah, you're going to lie to make money." She was a scientist, and scientists have little respect for lawyers, often. I haven't become a lawyer yet. But that child, I think, still lives somewhere inside me, raging against injustice. As a child, I read a lot. And as a young man, I came across a story that some of you may have read by a science fiction author. Her name is Ursula Le Guin. She wrote a story about a place called Omelas, a fantastical land. And the narrator describes this place as a utopia. Everyone is happy. All of their needs are fulfilled. There is no suffering. There is no sadness. There is no heartbreak. You can imagine whatever you want to visualize Omelas in your mind. What would the perfect place for you be? Maybe every person you have a crush on likes you back. Every meal you eat, no matter what it is, will never make you fat. You remember all the stories that you were once told, and you never have a problem with your memory. I'm aging myself here. I tend to imagine that in Omelas, everyone goes to bed early. There is no social media. And I can have as many ties as I want. It's an unbelievable place. And so the narrator reveals to us the dirty secret. All of this joy in Omelas is only possible because of one thing. When citizens of this fantastical city, this utopia, come of age, they are made to go down into a dungeon below the city. A dark, wet, miserable, terrible place. And there they are made to confront an innocent child who is trapped in this dungeon. And it is explained to them that if this child were ever to leave, everything we have would be lost. The majority of people settle themselves with this reality and go back about their lives. But in the closing lines of the story, the narrator tells us about those few, young and old, who walk away from Omelas. That's the name of the story, those who walk away from Omelas. Would you walk away? When I was a child, my answer was very clear. Of course. I could never settle myself to this dirty little secret. I'd never be able to live there. Of course I would walk away. I'm here to confess my sins. As I grow older, as I grow more gray, I'm not sure. How do you define leadership? I like a very simple definition. Leadership is taking responsibility. I like this simple definition because it's expansive. We start our leadership journey, if we ever start it at all, by taking responsibility for ourselves. You learn to get yourself up in the morning, to brush your teeth, to build good habits, to take responsibility for your actions, to keep yourself healthy, to be kind to others, to try and keep your conscience clear. And by turn, over time, if you choose, you start to take more responsibility for more things: a sibling, a team, an organization, for some, a nation, all in this spectrum of responsibility. The other thing I like about this definition of focusing on responsibility is I don't think it's possible, really, to take responsibility and keep your hands clean. When we take responsibility, we take action. When we take action, we make mistakes. When we make mistakes, our hands get dirty. There are unforced errors, errors of judgment, errors of temperament, errors of haste that we will make as leaders that we have to take responsibility for. There are passive errors. You take responsibility for an organization and someone in the organization misbehaves. It's not my fault. It's my responsibility. Something terrible happens. It's not my fault. But I should feel bad about it. Something bad happened on my watch. And then there's the worst kind of error. There's the forced error. When you take responsibility, there are some situations that just don't have a good answer. When I was 29, someone somewhere experienced the lapse of judgment, and I was appointed as the dean at ALA. I was entirely unprepared for this responsibility. 250 young people, 150 adults. I made a lot of mistakes, for sure. But the pains that stay with me are from days where I still believe I made the right decision. Early on in my time, in the second half of my very first year in that role, I sat in my office with a student who had made a big mistake. A student whom we were going to have to send home. He was in tears because he was going home to a place with virtually no opportunity and a deep, deep fear about his future. I made the decision on the evidence that I had, and I still believe it was the right decision. But watching him cry, my heart broke. Sometimes doing the right thing also requires doing a cruel thing, doing a mean thing, doing a hard thing. Every school leader knows this feeling, I think. Parents know this feeling too. Now imagine someone who leads a nation. We tend to lionize our leaders when they are in moments of moral clarity, when their ethics are perfectly aligned, when they are uncompromised and uncompromising. Mandela standing in the docks of the courtroom in Pretoria, talking about his ideal of a free and democratic society and saying, "It is an ideal for which I hope to live, work for, and achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Literally iconic courage, bright, hot, red or white courage, unmistakable. Fast forward to the end of his time, a compromised man who has tried to live and work for this ideal, and that martyr's purity is lost. I want to offer, just like the pithy statement says, you either die a hero or you live to become the villain, that there is another kind of courage needed. A gray, ugly, dirty courage of living to do things. The compromise required for progress. Some of you, I think, will be dissatisfied with this. You believe that you can live a full life with a clean conscience. I hope that you are right, and if you are right, I hope you will forgive me. But if I go back to those people who walked away from Omelas, with their heads held high and their conscience clear, I wonder about who takes responsibility? Who stays behind and allows their hands to be dirtied by the reality of their society and tries to do something to make it better? Thank you.